Tonight's guest is an Australian Poetry Slam champion whose debut book, The Future Ancients, is an independent bestseller in Australia. We are very happy to have him on the show. Please welcome Luka Lesson. Yeah, welcome back, brother.
What up?
All right, good times, man.
Good times.
Since 2011, when you won the Australian Poetry Slam Championship, you've been trailblazing. You've been everywhere.
All over the place.
Well, what countries? You've done China, you've done America. Where else have you gone?
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
South Africa.
No, there you go, South Africa.
New Zealand, South Africa,
Every
Hong Kong,
continent, pretty
Indonesia, Europe.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you teach poetry everywhere.
Teach spoken word poetry, do a bit of hip hop stuff, but mostly poetry's like taking me everywhere. It's crazy because I started in rap, and then as soon as I said poet, doors just open. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
People don't take rap
Yeah,
as
most
seriously?
people are like, you want to be a full-time poet? Are you crazy? Like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
But when I decided to do that, it did the opposite. Like, it's been my whole life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what countries have the best students?
Countries
For poetry.
For poetry. It's interesting. Different countries have different vibes and different ways of learning. So I found with the students that I work with in China that sometimes I'll work with an interpreter, but other times I'm working in international schools. But it's often difficult for me to tell someone, I mean generally, in China to kind of just do something creative without me giving structure, you know?
Oh, really?
They're just like, no, tell me exactly what you want.
Tell me exactly how to be creative.
And I'll learn it, and I'll do it exactly the way you want.
I say that to my writers here, so that's how this show works.
But then there's always people that break that mold. And then in South Africa, I found that young people in South Africa were just like incredibly poetic without even knowing. In some countries, I need to explain what a simile and a metaphor is, and you know. But in South Africa, they're doing it all the time, all day, every day. They're just like really. It's in the culture, it's in the vibe.
What's the best state in Australia to teach poetry?
Best state in Australia? I don't think there is one. I think it's more about different schools that have different vibes. And it's never about public or private school. It's more about like the culture of the school itself. Doesn't matter how much money or facilities they have or don't have. If the culture of the school's cool, then it
Come on,
rocks.
just tell us that most gangster rap comes out of Adelaide. We all know it's true. It's where all the hoods are.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, it's been, what, 4 years since you've done a poetry slam, is that true? You won the Australian Poetry Slam and then that's it?
And then I quit at the top.
Oh, there you go. Are you going to do it again? What's the deal?
Yeah, maybe. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking of actually entering the individual World Poetry Slam that happens in the US every year.
Cool.
So they have like a group poetry slam, they have a Women of the World Poetry Slam, and they have a IWIPS, individual World Poetry Slam.
So people may not know exactly what happens at a poetry slam. You're a pretty good ambassador for it. What's the deal?
So Poetry Slam is basically a competition of poetry. Some people say it's like a rap battle, but without the mama jokes. So it's kind of like...
Well, then I'm not interested.
So it's kind of like, basically poets get up and they have a poem that they've memorized, and they perform it within a time limit of 2 or 3 minutes. There's 5 judges in the crowd. They give you a score out of 10. The top score is dropped and the bottom score is dropped, and you get a score out of 30. So the best you can do is a 30 out of 30.
Cool.
And the prize in Australia has become really crazy. Miles Merrill, who runs the Australian Poetry Slam, has turned it into this almost like launch of a career. If you really want to take it by the scruff of the neck and run with it, then you can.
Something I want to ask, since you won the Poetry Slam, you've met some pretty famous people. I know that you had an encounter with Germaine Greer. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, I think writers festivals in general, you just kind of end up bumping into people, especially if they're writers of great novels. You know, you often don't know what a novelist looks like.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but you've read a book or you heard of a book, and you can be sitting next to someone and talking crap for you know however long before you realise
Did that happen
it
with
was
Germaine
Greer. Pretty much.
You were just talking to this lady, and then you...
Yeah, we were just chilling. Like around the hors d'oeuvres that they have at the opening, and she was like smashing some white wine and.
Yeah, that's a term for Germaine Greer. Smashing some white wine.
But she's hilarious, man. She was just like, yeah, just talking.
Was she flirty?
She was a little. I mean, it's hard to tell, but she was definitely enjoying the wine and having a good laugh, and kind of didn't really care who you were or whatever, but she would like talk to you and then turn around and talk to someone else in a second. Like there was no real etiquette going on. She was just Germaine Greer, so everyone's like wants to hang with her.
Yeah, awesome.
So it was kind of interesting like that.
So you said you started in rap and then you turned to poetry. So you kind of got both worlds. You've got Shakespearean worlds at your fingertip, and you also have the Tupac world at your fingertip. Now, I know we've spoken about this before. We're both big...
Somewhere in there,
yeah. We're both big Tupac fans, and do you... Fans. I'm so classy.
You're a big Tupac fan,
I'm a Tupac fan. No, I'm a big Tupac fan as well. Do you teach poetry students about Tupac?
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, Pac was a revolutionary in many ways, and I always had a poster on my wall growing up from a poem that he wrote. People don't know that he wrote poetry, but he wrote a book. There's a book that's been released called The Rose That Grew From Concrete. And in that book, there's a poem called In the Event of My Demise. And in that poem, there's a line that says, in the event of my demise, I hope I die for a principle or a belief that I live for. And I had a picture of Pac and that quote on my wall for like 10, 15 years growing up.
I had green eggs and ham, so we're similar.
Yeah.
We're similar.
Yeah, sick.
That sort of thing. Well,
did you really have green eggs and ham?
No, I didn't. I think I had Pac and Biggie and Snoop.
Really?
Can't you tell? Look at this. Gangster. Fully gangster.